on this last day of October. Thanksgiving is just 3 weeks away, and then Christmas is 4 weeks after that. Kids, have you thought about your Santa list of Santa Claus? It's time to get it in the mail. Okay, that's good. All right. Would you stand? Welcome to this October 31st meeting of the Irving Las Colinas Rotary Club. Would you stand for our invocation, which is going to be done by Lieutenant Richard Reynolds. Did I say that right?
Yes, you did.
Close enough?
Very good. Go for it. That's great. Father, we thank you so much for this time together of food and fellowship. Pray that you bless our conversations and our speaker today. Lord, being that it's Halloween, we lift up all the families and children that will be trick-or-treating tonight, that you would provide protection for them and safe return to their homes. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. And Ryan is going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, thank you. Please join me with your hand over your hearts as we say our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And if you would be seated, Donna is going to come up and introduce our guest.
Donna.
Donna.
Fire Princess.
Good afternoon. Our guests today are Donna Bourgeois. And we have Courtney, Jace, Raleigh, and Colt.
Yeah.
And we have Henry Breyer, who is with our speaker today, the North Texas Commission, Chris Wallace.
All right.
Let's give our guests a warm Rotary welcome. And a few announcements before I turn this over to Chris. First off, there's no meeting next week because Tuesday is our social. 5:30 at Cielitos, Mexican Flavors down on Las Colinas Boulevard.
Yeah,
And
we can commiserate the end of elections.
you know, there's going to be some celebration because it's the end of the election. Doesn't make any difference. It's the end.
done,
And,
yeah.
I, for one, am ready to go to the British system where it takes 90 days. Okay. Anyway. And also, I want you to know that in the back we have some of the state flags that if you want to have a state flag, the bucket is going. I need to say this in the internet. The bucket is going for hurricane relief in Appalachia and Florida. Okay. The state flags, those back there, were selling for $1 a piece. They're the used ones that flew at Millennium Fountain. And that's going for our hurricane relief. But I found a brand new Texas state flag,
Yeah.
which I will sell for $100 if anybody wants it.
All right.
Okay, $100. You can make the check out to the Rotary Club. It's for charity. It's going to this cause. And it's never been untouched by American hands. It's probably been touched by police hands, but not American. So
That's clever. Read between the lines on that one. That's a
read
great.
between the lines on that. And if Val gets here, she's going to get some more announcements. That's not everything I've got. And then I want to turn the meeting over to my good friend and former church member and colleague, Chris Wallace.
Yay!
All right.
Everyone, thank you very much. It's good to be with you all. Many friends here. It's always good to come back to the club and speak about what's going on in our region, what's going on in Austin and in DC. We too will be ready to get this election over with. Not just presidential, but certainly we've got a lot at stake in the Texas House and the Texas Senate with some key races. Not so much in our area. There are a few in our area. But certainly down in San Antonio, down in the valley, that will perhaps weigh some of the issues will go certainly in the House of Representatives. What I'd like to do is give you just a little bit of an update of what's going on at the commission. We're got a lot going on, and then I want to bring up my colleague Henry Bryan. Henry travels with me quite a bit when we do speaking all around our 13 county region. He's one of our policy analysts, handles all of our stakeholder relations. He's going to help tee up our legislative agenda for the 89th session that will begin second week in January. And then I'll come back up and kind of wrap that up and answer your questions. But George, we can go ahead and, yeah, that's perfect right there. A lot of this is in the magazine that you have in front of you. So if you have a hard time seeing this or if you want more information, a lot of this is in that magazine in front of you. But let me tell you a little bit about how many are familiar with the commission. I know Jim Klein and Patty and Bob and Don and Bill. So the commission started just over 50 years ago to develop the DFW Airport. The city of Dallas, the city of Fort Worth, and 6 large companies at that time, a few still are around today under different names, came together to solve a regional challenge. And that regional challenge was to bring air service, passenger and freight, more of it outside of Amon, Carterville, and Fort Worth, and Lovefield and Dallas, but to build a large regional hub airport, believe it or not, large regional hub airport. Today is the 3rd busiest airport in the world. It is the 2nd largest airport in the world by landmass. It is our economic engine for the region and 2nd economic engine for the entire state of Texas. So we do everything we can while we're not tied to the airport any longer. We do everything we can to make sure from a legislative standpoint, particularly on the federal level, that allocations, regulations, any other issues that impact the DFW Airport, we want to be certainly on top of. And we will continue to do so. But please continue to appreciate the DFW Airport. American Airlines, the #1 customer, as that airport is certainly our economic engine. So ever since then, the commission has been taking on large regional initiatives, whether it's bringing public and private sector leaders together. We're made up of 60% of the largest employers of our region and 40% public. So a little different than a Chamber of Commerce, although we work closely with our Chamber of Commerce partners. So cities, counties, 13 counties, over 60 cities, including Irving. Matter of fact, Mayor Stover chairs our North Texas Mayor's Council. He and Matty Parker, Fort Worth Mayor, co-chair our Mayor's Council. He does a great job from a regional mindset too. So whether it was Super Bowl 45, you remember Super Bowl 45, where we had the cobblestone ice? So the commission helped bring Super Bowl 45. We had a part, still have a part. I just had a meeting this morning on the World Cup. As you know, we have 9 matches of the World Cup 2026 going to be played in Arlington. There's going to be 13 other venues, including 4 base camps, perhaps 3 more base camps to come. 1 right here in Irving at the University of Dallas. And so we want to make sure that the World Cup is successful, not only from an economic standpoint, but from a public safety standpoint, from a human rights standpoint. A lot of eyes will be on North Texas during the World Cup. Thank you, Jordan. We can advance on, but just a little bit about the commission and what we do. Since I got to the commission 6 years ago, we have been leading the region's advocacy. That's why I was hired. I moved back here, as you know, from Austin with our state chamber. And we lead the region's advocacy in Austin and in DC. So we have a great lobby team here. Irving's part of that lobby team. We have a great lobby team in Austin. We have a great lobby team in DC, all working for our 13 county region to advance, make sure that we maintain our economic competitiveness for North Texas. So many of you may ask why regionalism. It's important because we have to collaborate here in North Texas. Our region looks a lot different than many other regions around the country. Whether it is large sporting events, whether it is a shared transportation system, whether it's a shared healthcare systems, whether it's shared education systems, we have to collaborate. It cannot just be Irving, it cannot just be Dallas or Fort Worth. Let me give you just a little bit of perspective. Dallas is our largest city. Fort Worth is our 2nd largest city. Arlington is our 3rd largest city. By the way, Fort Worth is bigger than San Francisco by population. Arlington is bigger than St. Louis and Pittsburgh by population. That's our 3 top cities. Then you have Irving, and you have 11 other cities, 15 total, who have a population of 100,000 or more. So there's no other region in the country that has a city as large as Dallas, city as large as Fort Worth, and Arlington, all in close proximity with 12 other cities, including Irving. all in a fairly small geographical area compared to other parts, right? Although we have very vast geography here. And so we are unique. So we must collaborate to be successful. And that's what the commission is founded upon, and that's what we make sure that our cities, our private sector businesses are engaged in the political process, in the local civic process, and that we are collaborating for the greater good of the region. Thanks, Jordan. So you're growing at a rapid pace, and again, a lot of this information is in your magazine as well. We're the 4th largest region today in the country. So New York, LA, Chicago, DFW, Houston. We are about to be number 3 in about 2 years. We were supposed to be number 3 in the 2020 census, but unfortunately we fell short. Just over 500,000 Texans were not counted in 2020. About $24 billion in a congressional seat that we were supposed to have right here in North Texas. Another congressional seat we lost. We did not get. And there's a lot of CHIP dollars, there's a lot of federal allocation dollars into our education systems that we did not get because there were 547,000 exact Texans, 126,000 of those here in North Texas were not counted. So we have to do a better job as a state, making sure that when 2030 rolls around, we are prepared. Our job is to make sure that the legislature allocates dollars or a source such as a state agency to help with that census, like many other states do. We do not here in Texas. This last census was led by cities, it was led by counties, it was led by the nonprofit community, foundations. It was led by the private sector. It was not led by government. So we want to make sure that government has a seat at that table, whether it's Secretary Nelson's office, whether it's Comptroller Hager's office. We want to make sure that the census is a top priority. We've got 3 legislative sessions to make sure that we get that accomplished. Just to put it in perspective, let's go back one more, Jordan, sorry about that. To the far right of this last slide, you see 38 states. If you can imagine a map of the U.S., there are 38 states highlighted. And imagine those 38 states, right? So those 38 states have a population less than our MSA, our 13 counties. So just our 13 counties, right here, as you can see in yellow, right? 38 other states, population less than we do right here in our entire region. It's pretty incredible, right? Just over 8 billion people today. If we were to have the census right now, it'd be about 8.2. And so we're going to double, certainly by the year 2050. And so we certainly got our work cut out for us to make sure that our challenges are resolved. Thanks, Jordan. There are many industries that make up our very diverse industry mix here in North Texas. Many of you who've been around a while know this hasn't always been the case. We looked a lot more like Houston several years ago. Just a few years ago, we looked a lot more like Austin. Today, we are unique compared to any other metro area in the entire state because we have a diverse mix of industries. It's our job and the economic developers who we work with around the region, including right here in Irving, to make sure that we keep it this way. So when we have a downturn in our economy, when we have a global pandemic, whatever else comes our way next, if one industry or 2 or 3 are down, then 1 or 2 or 3 are up. And we have a nice balance of industry mix, unlike, say, all like the large portfolio that Houston has in oil and gas and mining. We don't have that in North Texas as much as we used to depend on. So the financial services industry, healthcare, biotech industry, technology, all of that is growing here in our region. We want to continue to move those companies here to represent those diverse sectors. Thanks, Jordan. There are 6 value propositions that economic developers, us included, use when we are attracting business to our area. This is really not just for North Texas, but also for Texas just in general. There are 6 of them. Let me read it. It's kind of hard to read, but a safe, diversified economy. There's a reason why they are moving here. It is a safe investment. Growing skilled labor force. Our school systems, our higher education systems are doing a good job at producing workers. We want to make sure they're well funded to make sure they continue to do so. You'll see later, though, this is still our #1 challenge as a state. Number 3, a reasonable regulatory climate. Now, if you're a highly capital intensive manufacturer, you may disagree with that in Texas because of our tax structure, but we do have incentives that Patty's aware of, and Jim's aware of, that cities, counties offer that help offset school district, city taxes for a certain period of time on a contractual basis from an economic development standpoint for ROI, for taxpayer money. But overall, compared to other states that we compete with, Illinois, California, et cetera, Tennessee, New York, we have a reasonable regulatory climate. We have a rational tax system. It got a little bit better when we all voted for Prop 4 2 years ago. Easy accessibility. You can be in and out of DFW Airport on the East Coast or West Coast and be back in your home virtually the same day. So that central time zone, the easy access in terms of location. And then finally, we just added, just under a year ago, embracing innovation. Because of the number of products and services that are being tested, look no further than Perot Field at Hillwood, Alliance Airport in Fort Worth, in Denton County. You look at the Uber taxis and other types of technology that are being developed there as we speak. That will be products of tomorrow. So we've got a lot to be thankful for here. Home to 21 Fortune 500 companies, many right here, and just a few miles of where we are today. Thanks, Jordan. We have 8 target industry for the governor's office that we all work toward in the entire state. Economic developers, public policy professionals, like the commission, all work toward to make sure that our economy is diverse. Everything from information technology, corporate services, advanced manufacturing, the creative side, so video production, filming, movie production, petroleum refining certainly is top of Texas, helps keep our state moving. Energy sector, biotech, life sciences, and aviation, aerospace, and defense. Highly, highly important in North Texas. We have a record amount of defense manufacturers right here in North Texas, unlike a lot of other regions around the entire country that employ a lot of North Texas. So we want to make sure that that industry certainly remains strong. Thank you, sir. So moving on, probably cannot discuss North Texas without looking at our economy forecast. We follow a couple of economists. Dr. Ray Perryman out of Waco works with us well. Dr. Cullen Clark out of the Bush Institute at SMU. And the Dallas Fed, as you all know, we have this region's Dallas Fed right here in the region in Dallas. And all will agree that we're going to be adding about 7 million new jobs by the year 2050. Pretty much in the diverse industry mix that you saw on the pie chart earlier. But you know, our employment forecast indicates just under a 2% growth in this year as we end 2024. Year to date, Texas employment growth is about 1.7%. Overall, though, industries are still having a hard time hiring workers. They're having a hard time in terms of the skills. They're having a hard time finding people who want to do certain jobs. So there are a lot more jobs than there are applicants still in many of our industries. But economic indicators that researchers, economists use, overall, our economy in Texas is very steady, and certainly here in North Texas. So we're in good shape. Now, this tremendous growth, this great economy, we're going to have challenges, right? These are still our top 3 challenges as a region. And really now as a state, a growing skilled labor force, or our workforce pipeline, continues to be a big challenge. We're going to see a lot of pieces of legislation following in 89, like we saw in the 88 and the 87 to address this issue. Infrastructure all across. So not just broadband, not just water, mobility, certainly all types of infrastructure will be discussed in this next session. We're going to have anywhere from a $16 to $19 billion in growing surplus. Again, it's not going to be the $34 billion we saw last session, but we're going to have just over half of that about in surplus. And so we hope, and you can look at our legislative priorities on our website. The board for the region, we just adopted those last month. A lot of those priorities deal with infrastructure, how we fund infrastructure, not only new, but maintaining certainly as well. Water is a big part of that. Housing attainability. This is the first time in our state's history that both chambers, the House and the Senate, have had housing affordability as an issue during the interim session. So that's not just in major metropolitan areas, that's in rural areas as well. And I'm not speaking outside of the four populous counties, out in the rural counties. I'll get mayors and police chiefs and others come up and say, hey, you mentioned housing affordability. We have that issue right here. And we certainly have it here. We have it in Dallas County, right? So, and what I mean by that, so particularly one big example is workforce housing. So can nurses, our hospital staff, and our firefighters, and our police officers live remotely where they work? We want them to be close in case there's a big emergency. We want them to be close to that firehouse. We want them to be close to the police station. We want them to be close to that hospital. And in so many of our areas and pockets of North Texas, many of those folks have to live pretty far out. And we're very vast in our geography. So yes, we have public transit. We're working on even a greater plan for that. Because there are still a lot of gaps in that public transportation, as Jim can tell you, all across, and getting folks from that first mile, last mile, to and from their workplace, to and from their home, after they get off that train, it's still a big issue. We have a great relationship with our council of governments, and Michael Morris and team are working on updated transit plans as we speak. Obviously, Irving's in the middle of that fight too, being a member of the Dallas Area Rapid Transit System. Thanks, Jordan. I'm going to invite my colleague Henry Braun up to tee up our legislative. Many of the issues that I discussed relate directly to the 89th session. And then we're also gearing up for the federal legislative priorities. We typically don't do that until, since it's a presidential election, until after the election, where we know who's in the White House. It's a toss-up on who's going to control the House and the Senate. And our legislative priorities will be driven by the leadership in both of those chambers and the administration. So we'll be starting that process soon for the 119th Congress, which will convene first part of January. Henry?
Thank you, Chris. And yeah, thank you all for having us. My name is Henry Bryan. As Chris mentioned, I'm the stakeholder engagement manager here at the commission. So, and before I start and touch on this, I do just want to say I have a special place in my heart for Rotary. I was telling Chris, my mom, her local Rotary club sent her abroad during college. She still talks about that trip to South Africa all the time, changed her life. So thank you for what you do. It's super special to be here. Now, to the 89th session, which is super exciting and fun and not stressful at all. The NTC, we like to break up our issues into kind of three main buckets, as you'll see up here. First one is workforce readiness. Chris already addressed it's one of our biggest challenges that we're facing. We're continually hearing about all these businesses that want to move to Texas, especially DFW. But how are we able to accommodate that workforce? The big thing also is that a lot of those companies are bringing their own people. However, we need service workers to support that workforce. That's nurses, that's service industry workers, it's across the board, firefighters, police, essential workers is what we call them. So first of all, education is vital in this workforce development. Our public schools are the engine that really pushes our future workers to be able to be in skilled, high-paying jobs, and the North Texas Commission is really focused on supporting them. Second one is health and well-being. Mental health is a big issue that we're starting to notice. So we are hoping that our state legislature is able to allocate some funds so that businesses and communities are able to support young people, anybody who might be dealing with those issues. Second one here is economic competitiveness. First little bucket, as you'll see, is talent pipeline, very much tied into education. We want to make sure that Our educators are teaching for future jobs, as we all see the landscape for our workforce is changing dramatically and quickly. AI, new technologies, all of that stuff that you hear about on the news, that's going to impact our workers and our traditional jobs that we see. So we want to make sure we stay ahead of that, as opposed to just falling into it and leaving a generation of workers behind. Second part is economic development, super focused on making sure that we can keep up this engine, this train that is North Texas. We're moving fast, we're moving loud, but we want to make sure that we can maintain that growth, that we don't get ahead of ourselves, and that we continue to bring impactful businesses that are able to provide high-paying jobs. Finally is strong local communities, infrastructure. Chris did a great job at touching on some of the vital issues, and I'll kind of speak to that more on the next slide. In local government, at the North Texas Commission, we believe that our issues are best addressed locally. Irving's challenges are different than Dallas's challenges, and they're certainly different than Midland's challenges. So we elect our local officials for a reason. We have local control for a reason, and there isn't much reason that we see in having the folks down in Austin who may not understand exactly what particular things that we are facing here in North Texas. We don't need them telling us what to do. So these are our priorities for the 89th session coming up at the State House. These were approved by our board, which consists of 182, Chris? 182 members. It's a pretty non-traditional board setting. But
When do I have no hair left?
but they approved these priorities unanimously at our board meeting in September. A lot of hard work went into that, and we're really proud of the team and the board members who contributed to all this work. As you can see, business competitiveness, I said that I would touch on it. A big focus is the R&D tax credit. R&D is in research and development. There's a growing need and a growing interest in having bio and life sciences here in North Texas, having technology companies here in North Texas. We want to make sure that we're an attractive state and region for those companies to move here. So renewing that R&D tax credit is pretty vital to our goals. High-paying jobs, those are really influential jobs that make our region attractive as well. So that's a big focus. Second is local government. I touched on it before. A big fight that we are anticipating is a potential ban on taxpayer-funded lobbying. I'll say that again, taxpayer-funded lobbying sounds like the least attractive thing ever. Who likes taxpayer-funded and who likes lobbying? What it really means is they're trying to stop our local elected officials from going down to Austin, advocating for their region's needs, and not having to pay out of pocket for that. So taxpayer-funded lobbying means that they are able to use their civic funds to pay for gas or a hotel. These voices need to be heard in Austin, and we don't need to be punishing our local elected officials for doing that financially. So that's going to be a big fight, and we want to make sure that our local communities have a voice in Austin. Third of all, health and well-being. We need to increase access as well. There is a huge number of uninsured Texans. There's a huge number of uninsured North Texans as well. So there's a lot of different opportunities the state legislature can look at to make sure that our workers, the people who live here, have access to healthcare and actually seek out healthcare when they need it. Finally, water and infrastructure. Water is kind of the big issue that we see here. Chris tells it better, but he was working on getting a lake approved here in North Texas 20 years ago, and they are set to complete in 2026. Is that right? It takes a long time for these water projects to be done, and We don't want to be like California where they restrict their water access in the summer. And with 7 million new people coming in to North Texas in the next few years, we need to make sure that we stay ahead of that issue. What we'll be lobbying for in Austin is a dedicated fund from the state to fund these water projects, because like I said, it's a long-term effort. And if we get behind the ball, it's going to affect every single person here, not the newcomers, every single person here. Finally, education and workforce. We heard a lot about education last session, specifically revolving around vouchers. We're going to hear a lot about that again. But first and foremost, our goal is to pay our teachers. They have not received a pay raise since 2019, which is severely impactful, especially given the rate of inflation that we've seen since then. It's almost becoming untenable to be an educator in Texas, and that should not be the case. Our teachers should be well paid and well supported. So that's step one. Second of all, we have taken a stance against vouchers in the upcoming session. That's not to say that we are opposed to school choice or empowering Texan parents or children to seek out the best education opportunities. What we're saying in that opposition is that the bills that were presented last year had little to no guardrails around this voucher system. We aren't stuck in our ways. If there is a bill presented that sets guardrails, keeps our public schools funded, and also just best equips our students to seek out the best education, we'll go back to our board, reassess our position, and take a look at that. But that will be a battle. And I think a lot of legislators are just saying, let's write a blank check to every parent, and that does not cover the issue in totality. But that's about all I've got. Thank you so much for having me. Really happy to be here, and I'll pass it off to Chris.
Well, this Henry's been with us just about 2 months. Came to us from JDJ Management in Dallas. Before them, the Congressman Jake Elsey and Susan Lilly is a master political fundraiser, SMU grad with distinction. This is the first time he's done this presentation today. This is the first time he's done this presentation publicly. So, his boss used it with me, and I'm gonna go back and tell you better watch out. Let me build on 2 of those points just quickly before we move on in the short time we have left. Let me give you a couple of data points. Vouchers, no matter what side you're on vouchers, if you're pro vouchers or anti vouchers, keep this in mind because public schools are on the ballot today, right? Maybe not right here in Irving, well, maybe in one state rep race, but certainly in other parts of the state, public schools, in terms of who you elect in the House or Senate, is on the ballot. 84% of students in Texas today are in our public schools. So when we're looking at future workers, training our future workers, more than likely our workforce is going to turn to that 84% just by sheer volume. So the 16% are in private schools, and we have some great private schools right here in Irving and around the entire region, religious space and others, and they're homeschooled. So when we see a bill from the legislature that says, okay, parents can have $8,000 to $10,000 to send their kids to a private school, homeschool their children, we don't necessarily disagree with that. We want, as Henry said, well, we want guardrails in place for accountability. We want them to be held to the same accountability standards, the same testing standards that our charter schools and our ISDs, all of our public schools are held to. And as Henry said, schools, ISDs have not seen any sort of pay increase, any sort of funding increase since 2019. We've had mass inflation, although it's getting better, mass inflation since then, right? So we're having to close schools. We're having to look and repurpose some. So there is school choice in ISDs. So keep that in mind, 84%. So Henry mentioned healthcare. On the federal side, let me just give you another data point. 34 states in the U.S. have Medicaid expansion. And it may have grown the last several months or so, but around the mid-30s. have Medicaid expansion. So those states take dollars, right, to DC. Texas dollars go to DC. Who uses those dollars? So the dollars that Texas sends to DC, those mid-30 or so states who have Medicaid expansion use those dollars, because we don't get those dollars back because we do not have a Medicaid expansion plan in Texas to date. So that's why we have the most uninsured of any population. It's not because we're one of the largest states. It's because we have no plan, right? Call it what you want. You don't have to call it Obamacare. You can call it whatever you want. But come up with like Arizona, Florida, other red states who are led by Republican administrators' leadership. Call it what you want, but come up with our own plan to make sure that our hospitals are made whole for uncompensated care. So we're going to be continuing to be on the battlefield on that federal issue as well. Thanks, Jordan. Let me just kind of give you just state of play in politics. I mentioned this at the very beginning, but not so much in our area outside of two races, one in Dallas and one in the east side of Dallas that we're really watching, where the state house seats may flip, where there's both are Republican, but we may see a moderate, more pro-business, pro-Democrat win both of those seats. Could be. I think we will see one or two, particularly one in the Valley, one in the San Antonio area. I think we'll see that flip. That's going to be key in the House, particularly if Abbott has his voucher votes or not. So if you haven't voted, you have a few more days. So today, tomorrow, and then starting on election day. So please exercise your right to vote. Just quickly on our federal priorities, I talked about these a little bit. We will develop our roadmap for the 119th Congress, and certainly work with Jake Ellzey in appropriations, who represents where we're sitting right now. Work with Congresswoman Van Dyne. We have 12 members of Congress who we work with very closely, R's and D's, throughout our entire 13-county region, plus Corning and Cruz. And we'll see how the Cruz already race comes out. Regardless, we've got a work cut out for us in the 119th Congress, whichever leaders in the White House. Thanks, Jordan. Let me, I know this is hard to see, and what I'm talking about here is why March matters. Every March primary, we run a massive campaign to get people out to vote. Now, right now, we've seen just over 600,000 Texans cast in early voting for the presidential. That's an anomaly, right? Because it's a presidential election. But I'm talking about for a governor's race or for a typical non-presidential election race, you're going to see about 8% of registered voters, 5% of Texans turn out for March. Let me tell you why that matters right now. We have 3 members of Congress who are retiring. Kay Granger, longtime appropriations chair. I mentioned aviation, aerospace, and defense. She brought billions of dollars to Texas, to Bell, and to Lockheed Martin to employ more Texans. Billions of dollars. She's retiring at the end of this calendar year. Congressman Burgess, Dr. Burgess, now our Rules Committee chair. He is retiring at the end of this calendar year. Colin Allred is leaving Congress to run for Senate. Now, we'll see if he beats Ted Cruz. I think it's doubtful. So we're going to lose Colin regardless. Julie Johnson will be in his seat. So a Democrat will take his seat. A Republican will take Dr. Burgess' seat. And another Republican, Craig Goldman, will certainly take Kay Granger's seat. Now, why do we know that? Because that's the way the lines are drawn. That's the way the districts are drawn several months ago. And so, no doubt, March matters. So if you didn't vote in the March primary, this vote that we have right now really doesn't make any big difference. Those members of Congress were decided back in March, the way that the lines are drawn. Just from the sheer demographics of Democrats and Republicans, you don't have that many switching their votes even in the general election versus a primary election where you vote Republican or you vote certainly for the Democrats. Thank you, sir. Just want to make that point why March certainly matters. Let me just close out here. We would love for you to be engaged. We have a lot going on at the commission. One thing we're doing right now, Jim, you can appreciate this, is we are revisiting our region's 2050 plan. Jim may remember this, Patty, back in 2010, the Council of Governments kicked off an initiative. The commission was at the table as well to look at the year 2050 and where are we falling short between now and the year 2050. So we are revisiting that plan today. We've been hosting a series of high-level meetings with senior leadership in both public and private sector leaders, us and COG, the last several months. In healthcare and trauma services, where are we with our hospitals? Where are we falling short? What are the gaps, particularly in trauma services? And there's pockets in our entire region who are falling short in terms of distance to a trauma type facility to be treated. Where are we in infrastructure? That one's coming up in Q1 of 25. All infrastructure, we'll have experts there to educate where we are on infrastructure and where we've fallen short. And then we did one back in August on healthcare, on workforce. And where are we in terms of our public schools, our graduation rates, our transitions to community colleges and to four-year colleges? Who is bypassing higher education, getting a certificate, much needed certificate in the trades and what have you, much needed workers today in many of our fields. So more to come on that as we finish that process and develop our final report on how we're updating the region's 2050 plan. We want to make sure that we're prepared for the future. As our region continues to grow, there's more and more people coming here, and we have to be prepared for that. And we have to maintain what we have from an economic competitiveness standpoint. So again, thank you very much for your time and attention today.
Before we sit down, Henry, would you come up here? We have something for you.
We're going,
Rotary is an organization that serves above self, and we believe in the four-way test, which is going to be right here, and which we were going to recite in just a minute. And first is it the truth? Here's a coin to help you remember. Always, is it the truth? Right? Thank you for being here. I forgot to ask Val to do her announcements last week, and she spoke to me like I was her little brother. So Val, come up here and do your announcements.
All right, Val.
Oh, Val.
Yeah.
Okay.
Just want to mention that the monthly district roundtable is coming up November 9th from 10 to 12 at Brookhaven College. We have a half table now that attends regularly, so if you'd like to join us, please let us know.
You had a certificate?
Yeah, and we were recognized for the donation for polio
Yes.
for last year, and will be this year as well.
Okay. The meeting is at 10 o'clock at Brookhaven College. Contact me. It's in building H. And they're going to talk about the Rotary Foundation this time. So it'll be a good meeting. Does anyone else have any announcements? Well, I'm doing this. Notice it. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
Anyone else have any announcements? Jordan, you have an announcement.
Lynn would like the Arizona flag.
Tell Lynn she was supposed to be here because the Arizona flag for her is sitting right there on my table.
Just heard.
Okay, tell her I will give it to her Tuesday at the. Lynn, I'll give you the flag Tuesday at the social. I have it right over there. Okay, and if anybody else has a flag that particularly that they want, let me know. The state flags are going for $1. Except for the Texas state flag, and I want to get more money than that for that. Okay? Anything else? And we should. The North Texas Commission ought to, they could come up with $100 for a flag. It's done.
Hallelujah.
Would you stand as the RP comes up and leads us in the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do?
The RT.
Please join me in the four-way test. Number one.
Is it the truth?
Number two.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Number three.
Will it build goodwill?
It looks like we may need to come up with some money for a new sign. It's getting a little ragged around here. Right? With that, Chris, It's always a delight to see you. Henry,